Hey, here we have a continuation. We're continuing learning what we began yesterday and what Jews all over the world are beginning this week to learn this week's reading, this week's Torah reading, which is called Toldot, and it's talking about the confrontation, the how do you say the argument between Esav and Yitzchak, twin brothers. And we're going to see that Esav, he sort of started the whole thing, but we're going to see what's happening. Twin brothers, they were both formed from holy people. Rivka and Yitzchak, holy parents. How much they prayed, how long they beseeched God to have these children, and finally they did. And now starts a tremendous confrontation and war between specifically these two brothers. So long awaited, and this is what we get. So here we go. Ready? Yitzchak loved Esav. Kitzayed bepiv. And we're going to learn, very interesting here, it says that there's 70 faces to the Torah. In other words, you can explain every sentence, every idea, you can explain it 70 ways. And really, you can explain it much more than that. But it says that it's another way of saying it. You can explain it 70 ways of the Torah. We're talking about genuine ways, not the ways that are just made up and that they're contradictory to what God wants. But there's different facets of understanding. Very interesting. Listen to this. Here, let me give an example. And Torah values these. That's why we print them all here. Listen to this. Okay, so we have these two brothers, right? The children grew up, and Esav became a person that knew how to hunt, and he was a man of the field, always going into the forests and hunting and killing animals, putting himself into danger, bringing back bears and lions and all sorts of other things, as well as kosher food, because he fed his father. And Yaakov was a simple person, sitting in tents. So it said that when they were small, Kol Zman, Rashi says, all the time that they were small, people didn't pay too much attention to what they did. A person doesn't pay so much attention to what a child does, because children grow up and they suddenly they reveal their talents and their interests, and then they just stop doing the foolish things that they did when they were children. As soon as they became 13 years old, one went to learn Torah. It says there was already Torah in the house of Shem and Aver. Shem was one of the sons of Noah, and he taught all the different details of the 7 Noahide commandments. And the other one went to worship idols when they were 13. And we're going to see later that that's one of the reasons that Abraham died. Abraham was supposed to live 180 years old, like Yitzchak did. But Abraham lived only 175 because God did not want him to see and suffer the experience of seeing his grandson become such an arch evil maniac, and a very successful one. And so Esav was Yodei Tzayid. He was a hunter. What does it mean he hunted? So he says he was a hunter, not so much, this is how Rashi says, not so much in the sense that he was actually going and hunting, but he was a charlatan. He was a tricker. He was a con man. He tricked his father. Sholo, he said, Father, how do we take mice? How do you take the tithe from salt and from straw? The Rebbe has a beautiful sikha about this. Why he picked those two things. And he thought that his father thought, wow, my son is really careful about the commandments. He's really good. Little did he know that his son was going out and raping ladies and killing people and stealing brides from under the wedding canopy. He was a man of the field, on a batel, and he was a man of the field. What does he mean he was a man of the field? It says, not that he was going out and hunting. This is how Rashi says. He was a person that he was wandering around in the fields all the time. And he would go out hunting, he would go out hunting also. Had nothing to do. So the main thing of his hunting was that he was hunting people. He was another Madoff or somebody. He was tricking people and hunting people, especially his father. And in his spare time, what did he do? He would wander around, shoot animals and kill birds. Eno Bucky, it says he was an Ish Tam, but Yaakov, it says, was a simple person. What does it mean, simple? He was simple means that he was not an expert in all these things about cheating and lying and hunting. But what was in his heart, that was what is in his mouth. There's a saying, I just read a saying, who? By who? Mark Twain or somebody? That someone who tells the truth doesn't have to have a good memory. Always telling the truth. Misha Enu Harif, I heard it the other way around. The person who's a liar has to have a good memory. Misha Enu Harif, Yaakov, he's not sharp to trick people. He's called a Tom. And like there's some people that they're all they live for in life is to get something out of other people. To look at, they treat everybody what they can get out of them. And if not now, maybe down the line. Then there's other people that they're not thinking about the future. They just value every human being as something special. And they're not interested in getting anything except maybe a smile or making somebody feel good. Yoshev Oli, Olo Shoshem, Olo Shaver, that he was in the tents of shame and Aver. So he was learning Torah. And that's what Evan Ezra says, something like that. He says that he was a hunter. What does it mean, hunter? That he was tricking everybody, because most animals, they're caught by means of trickery. Right? You put like a trap down, and you put some food on it. The animal thinks you're a nice guy. You're giving him what to eat, right? And he goes for the food and he gets trapped. Or you hide in a bush or something and you wait from the. But Yaakov, he did the opposite. He was very simple. That's what the Evan Ezra said. Yeah, so he said and he learned Torah. Okay. It says Ish Tam Bal Hatorim. Ish Tam. This is Ish Tam. This is the letters Shem, right? Shem. Ish Tam. Yaakov learned in the learning place of Shem. Shoshev, he learned in the tents of Shem, and he learned. Okay, let's continue. Here he says Kli Yakar said he was a Ish Tzayed, that he was a hunter. What does it mean, a hunter? That Kli Yakar says he would hunt women, take away women for their husband. He did this for 40 years. According to the rabbis, Ba al-Na'ara Murasa, that he raped a engaged woman. Therefore, it's because he knew Tzayid, namely he took women from their husbands. Another one says that he didn't wait. He didn't only rape women that were engaged to be married. He says he took them from under the wedding. I guess that's the same thing. I guess before they got married. Okay, because it says by the engaged woman in the field. Okay, therefore he's called the Ish Sadeh. Okay, the Yitzchak loved Esav. Kitzayed bepiv, because he hunted in his mouth. Rashi says because he knew how to trick him and lie to him. We'll see what the others say. He would hunt in the mouth of Yaakov. Like we said before, he would say, Daddy, how can I take tithes? How can I serve God better? How can I, take tithes from straw? He would trick him. So he thought he was great. Now in the Chassidut, it explains, we'll get to this week, we'll get to this, what was going on over here. That Yitzchak knew exactly what was going on. He knew that Esav was a very evil person. But he knew something that Esav didn't know, and that what was the source of Esav. He knew that the reason that Esav was evil was because Esav represented this physical world that has to be fixed, right? The job of the Jewish people is to fix up the world. The world is an evil place. The world is a very false and deceptive place. And Esav was like Mr. World. He represented the world. He was the ultimate bad of the world. And Yitzchak knew that that's the reason why he was here, in order to fix it up. And Yitzchak, and Yaakov, the same thing, also knew, but Yitzchak made a mistake. He thought that he could fix up Esav by giving him a big blessing. He could, be friendly with him and give him a big blessing. And really, you can't do that. It takes a long time. It's a long process, but we'll talk about that later. Let's talk about that later. So we have Kafches, we have the Rashi, the Ramban. And the Ramban is that people say that he brought food. Simply, he brought food, tzayid befiv, that he brought the things that he hunted, right? He would hunt and he would trap animals and he would slaughter them, whatever, and he would give his father to eat. So therefore, he is always there. Yitzchak loved Esav because Yitzchak was always eating the food that Esav brought to him, which is not the case by Rivka. Esav was never around. Esav didn't hang around Rivka. Here it explains another interesting thing. The HaChaim says, why didn't he trick? It says he only tried to trick. He was a tricker, right? He was a con man, a liar. Why did he only try to trick his father? Why didn't he try to trick his mother as well? He was tricking everybody, but he couldn't say a straight word. Why is it that they didn't try to trick his mother, Rivka? So the HaChaim says, because first of all, he knew that his father had the power to bless. And also he was afraid that his father might curse him, because his father also had this power to curse if he got mad. So therefore he was angry. Therefore he was afraid of his father. And he also wanted to butter his father up to get these blessings eventually. And Rivka, she didn't have the power to bless like Yaakov did. That's what HaChaim says. Kli Yakar says, what does it mean he would hunt? Esav was hunting in his father's mouth. Okay, we learned according to the Ramban that it meant the food that he hunted was in his father's mouth. It was close to his father all the time. Rashi said, no, he was hunting in his mouth. He was telling him all sorts of, lying to him and trying with the Esav's mouth. He would try to, Esav would lie in his mouth and he would trick his father. The Kli Yakar says that his father would ask him, where have you been in the field all day? And he would say, listen, I'm going out to bring you food, Daddy. Right? That's all I'm thinking about. And because he was not found by his mother, therefore, she didn't love him. Rivka loved Yaakov. The Yaakov was always found at home. He was always sitting and learning, whatever. Or maybe we can say, maybe we're just talking about that he loved. When did Yitzchak love Esav? On the time, Bezman, on the time when Esav was feeding Yitzchak, his father, that's when Yitzchak loved him. But after that, he left and then all of a sudden, when Yitzchak had no reason to love him, he didn't love him anymore. But Rivka, she always loved Yaakov for no reason at all. She just loved him because of who he was. And Yitzchak knew who Esav was, but when he gave him food, so he thought maybe he's changed his mind, maybe he's a nice person. But this type of love that she had never stops. Okay, so Yaakov, he made nazid. He made some sort of a bowl, it says, of lentils. And Esav came from the field and he was tired. What is nazid? It's some sort of food he made, some sort of a dish. And he was tired. Why was he tired? Because he was tired from murdering people or animals or whatever. And there's So he says he was tired. HaChaim says, why was Yaakov all of a sudden making this cholent or whatever he's making? He said, because Yaakov saw that when Esav was feeding his father Yitzchak, that Yitzchak liked him. So therefore, Yaakov said, listen, maybe I'm making a mistake. I'm not devoting enough attention to my father. So therefore, he said, you know what, I'll also cook. And my father will like me. We'll see later on this whole thing about that Yitzchak says, make me a nice meal and I'll bless you. Any case, so here's Esav, and he's panting and moaning, and he's about to die. And Esav says to Yaakov, give me a little bit of this red, Adom, because I'm very tired. Therefore, his name was called Edom. They called his name Edom. So he asked the question, Kli Yakar, when he was born, he was also red. It says, what does it say? If he was Adom Aderet Sa'ir, he was said when he was born, he was already red color. When Esav was born, he said he was already the color red. He was born color red. Why didn't they call him Adom back then? Here, let's see. Admoni. It says he came out Admoni. That's right. Adom. He was already red when he was born. Why did he wait now? Then now he's 13 years old. It says, why did he wait now to call him Adom? So the Kli Yakar says, I won't read it, but he says that when a lot of children are born with the color, they had red hair or whatever. He says that was nothing unusual. But as soon as he saw this bowl of lentils or whatever the soup was, and he said, give me to drink some of this Adom. Haliteni means like pour it down my throat. This Adom, this red. So why did he call it that strange name, red? So everybody understood that this is something in his past personality, that the redness comes out, and therefore he loved. He said, okay, and therefore Chashvu Molidato Shema Mari Adom, this is only just nature. But when he said, give me to drink from this red, Adom, so why didn't he just call it Adashim? Why didn't he call it the name? It was a bowl of lentils. But he revealed that this was part of his nature. He loved, the reason that he loved this soup, he wanted the soup, was because of the color. So this showed that the nature of him was inclining to red, the color red, blood, fire, etc. That's why it's called red. Okay, that's one answer. Here's another answer, Sforno, that says that when people saw that he sold everything for no, that's not this one. And the reason is because here it is. I'm sorry. I can't find it. One of them said that everyone was laughing at him. Everyone was laughing at him, and they were calling him red because he sold everything that he had for this bowl of red soup. So that's why they called him. Here it is, the Ramban. That's why they called him Adom. One of the names is Edom, red. Everybody laughed at him that he sold everything that he had, sold his birthright for just a bowl of red soup. So they called him red. That's what he says. Okay, Rashi says a little bit different. Rashi says like this. Haliteni said, Esav said, pour it down my throat. Like we learned, ain't ovsim at the gamal, you can't stuff it down his throat, but you can malitimoto. You open the camel's throat and you pour it down. They called them adom, adashim. They were red lentils. That day, Abraham died. Abraham died so they would not see Esav, his grandson, become evil. This is not the old age that God promised Abraham. Therefore, God cut. And if Abraham would have seen Esav go out to be so evil, and he was like really evil, that would wreck Abraham's life. And God promised Abraham that he would die with old age in a pleasant way. So to avoid that pain, so he died 5 years early. Therefore, God cut off 5 years of his name. Yitzchak lived 180 years old, and Abraham lived 175 years old. And therefore, Yaakov cooked these lentils in order to, it says that a mourner is supposed to eat a meal when he comes back from the burial place. Why a dashim? Why these lentils? Because they're like a wheel. They're a wheel that avelut, death and mourning is part of the cycle of life. So that's one of the reasons why we eat a dashim today. Okay, let's just a little bit more. How many we have to do quickly? Yaakov said, "Sell me the firstborn. Sell it to me." Rashi says, "What does it mean? Sell it to me?" And it's like the day is clear when it's the day. So I want a clear sale. Your firstborn, you're the firstborn. What did he mean to sell the first? What does that mean? How can he sell him the firstborn? If he's the firstborn, how can he sell it to me? What did he want him to sell? So he said, before the sin of the golden calf, the ones that were the priests, so the ones that did the main service of God, were the firstborn. And Yaakov said, this evil person, he's not fitting that he should serve God. So I'm telling him, taking it away from him. And Esav said, I'm going to go to die anyway. He was dying from the field, right? He was so tired and worn out. Why do I have to have a firstborn? So Rashi says it a little bit different. He says, I mean, if he was going to die, how could he have this long conversation? He says, Esav said, what do you want me to do? You want me to sell you my right as a firstborn? What is this thing of this firstborn? So Yaakov said, well, in the Holy Temple, because Yaakov knew the whole Torah, and they also knew the whole Torah. He said, well, there's a lot of prohibitions, and there's a lot of punishments, and there's a lot of punishments of death. Like we learn, Elu ein shebemisa says these are a person that drinks wine before he goes in to serve God. If his hair is unkempt when he goes in to serve in the Holy Temple, he gets killed. Esav said, what do I need that for? I'm going to go and die. Not that he was dying from the field. He said, this thing, I got this curse, which is called I'm the firstborn. I'm going to have to serve God in the temple, and I'm going to have to be careful. I want to be the boss. I want to do, therefore, what do I need it? I'll sell it for nothing, right? It's not worth anything. I would even pay somebody to take it from me. But not this right to serve. Who wants to serve God? That's what Esav said. Yaakov said, swear it to me. And he swore to him. And he sold the Bechorah to Yaakov. The HaChaim said, why did he have to swear? He said, I'll sell it to you. You can write up a deed or something. What does he have to swell? He says, because to be a priest serving God, there's a lot of things that can't be sold. It's like, for instance, kavod va'amala. For instance, a Kohen, he's like called up first to the Torah. A Kohen has a certain degree of, there's certain people a Kohen can't get married to, right? He's not allowed to. And so this is a high thing. You can't sell that. So he said, therefore, make an oath to me. Therefore, the oath, that'll settle it. That will do things that a sale can't do. Yaakov gave to Esav bread and this nazid out of sheep and this dish, this cholent of lentils, and he ate and he drank and he got up and he left. And Esav hated this service of God. This, says Rashi, the Torah tells about how evil he was, that he didn't say, "Wow, I'm really sorry that I left it out, that I'm left out of serving God." He was really happy. So it says that he excluded himself from serving God. So therefore, Esav said, I'm really happy. The Torah tells us how evil he was, that he slighted, he said bad things about serving God. He said, "Well, I'm happy that he was disgusted with the idea of selling God, of serving God." Okay, that's today's lesson. We see the nature of Esav and the nature of Yaakov and how Yaakov sells. Now it says in another place, Rashi even brought it down, that in fact, Yaakov was the first one to be conceived. So he didn't fool him totally. It's like if you take a pipe, you close up one end and you put in two marbles, a white one first and then a black one second. So the first one that comes out is the last one you put in, right? You put in a black one second. So when you turn that pipe that's, the end is closed, you turn it over. So the last one you put in comes in first. So in that way, Esav, in a way, was the last one to be conceived. So Yaakov had a right to the firstborn. But in any case, so you can ask yourself a question, that answer is sort of a contrived answer, because in Judaism, the child who comes out first, that's the firstborn. We don't say he came out first, but he was really conceived late. He's really the firstborn. So how could it be that Esav was the firstborn? Why did God make it that way? So in Chassidut, it explains that really, like we said before, that's how I started the class, that Esav was really spiritually higher. His source was higher. Esav represents the physical world. Not only just the physical world, it says that Rivka also represented the physical world, but Esav represented the bad, the evil, not just the potential evil, but the actual evil that is in this world. And that's the job of the Jewish people, is to transform this actual evil into potential evil, and then potential evil into being just mundane, and then mundane into be holy. And that's the job of the Jewish people. So therefore, Esav really had a higher source, and that's what we're going to see later on. We're going to get to it, maybe even tomorrow. That's why Yitzchak wanted to bless Esav, but he thought he could do it quick. And Rivka knew better that it was going to be a long process, so therefore she told her son how to trick her blind husband Yitzchak in order to get that blessing. So we'll talk about this more, God willing, tomorrow. Have a good day with Mashiach now. Hope to see you tomorrow, 8:15 in the morning.